The opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Cable 14, its sponsors, or its shareholders, Cogeco Cable, Shaw Cable, and Source Cable Limited.
And welcome to the November 15th edition of the Opinionators. I am Larry Diani, and the Opinionators is the premium opinion program that's based on partisan political politics as represented by our expert panel. And let's introduce them right now. Representing the Liberal Party right in the middle of the panel is Ron Corsini. Hello, Ron.
Hey, Larry.
And representing the Conservative Party, Tara Cugnale on my left, your right.
Yeah, thanks, Larry.
And of course, the NDP represented by Alex Johnstone. Welcome, Alex.
Hello, Larry.
Well, folks, listen, we've got a full house of issues to deal with tonight. We're going to get right to it. And the first one will go to you, Ron. And it has to do with a trend that seems to be pervading the political landscape, both in the United States and here in Canada. And that is the decriminalization of recreational use of marijuana. The latest to jump on the bandwagon seems to be Justin Trudeau. 40 years old, he grew up in that age, and he is saying that maybe marijuana should be decriminalized. The party, by the way, at their last convention agreed to that, so he's picking up the mantle. Is he making a mistake?
No, I don't think he's making a mistake at all. I think he's Canada and the world are changing, I believe, on decriminalizing recreational use of marijuana. And this was years ago in Prohibition with alcohol, and the same thing was going on. I think he is on the right track. I think if they do studies about decriminalization of marijuana and make sure that it's a recreational use, because before you can go to booze cans and things of that nature if you wanted to drink after hours, but those things still happen. But legalizing it, no. Decriminalizing it, yes. It would free up the courts. I mean, it would allow the police to do their job in much more important issues, I think, than catching people smoking a joint.
Well, Alex, to you on this, Ron drew a very nuanced distinction between decriminalizing, meaning it's not a criminal offense for having or smoking or using marijuana, and legalizing it. I believe some members of your party actually want to see it legalized, and even Justin Trudeau sort of waffled between the two. What's your take on this?
Well, Larry, I'm glad you brought up the waffling. I think it's important to get back to the real story here, which is what's making the front pages of newspapers. Trudeau is a hypocrite on this issue. It wasn't that long ago that he voted with Harper's Conservative government supporting mandatory jail sentences for those who were busted with marijuana. And for him to go from one extreme to the next, it doesn't really make sense. Is he just pandering to the audience? This isn't the first time that Trudeau has flip-flopped either. He certainly has flip-flopped on whether Quebec should be allowed to separate or not. He's waffled back and forth on that a couple of different times, and
okay, but Alex, let me interrupt, because that's a nice dodge. The question is, what does your party feel? How do you feel about this?
How do I feel about this? Well, we talked about this a few shows ago, and my points really haven't changed. I think I do agree that it would reduce many of our backlog in the courts. Certainly, if we're going to have drinking, we might as well allow marijuana to be legalized.
So legalization is what you're saying. Okay.
Well, you can't have
apples
both.
and oranges. Apples and oranges.
Or one, but not the other.
Okay.
I don't think that it's appropriate to bulk alcohol and marijuana use in the same breath. You really can't. They're two vastly different things. I mean, we're talking about trying to live better, live cleaner. Sure, we have alcohol use and we have smoking, but our government is trying to, yield us away from it. And now we're going to be bringing in another drug and trying to decriminalize or legalize it.
Prohibition
no,
again?
I'm not. I'm not, Alex.
Sounds like.
First off, I think that Justin Trudeau is really just trying to pander to the younger generation. Are you? Come on, it's true.
I don't.
So he's pandering. I think a lot of people won't recognize the difference between decriminalization and legalization right off the bat. So they'll just always immediately assume that it's legalization.
I mean, look,
whereas the two are very different.
So you're out on a night getting stoned and
getting stoned. That's okay. And
you
what
know,
you're
or
gonna,
you're
and you're
getting
going
smashed one or the other.
You're going to get into a car and drive. So now we're going to
Well,
have
no,
new laws into place.
Those same laws
new laws
would
are going
apply.
to. Well, sure. So you're opening up the floodgates, and it's just inappropriate.
But
I think
Ron,
that we should be focusing on the sin taxes and drugs that we already have that are legalized, and don't start trying to pander to the younger generation for votes.
Tara makes a good point, though, and it's this, and I would certainly make the same argument that with all of the issues that we have before us in this country, why are we going to the legalization of marijuana?
Not legalization, decriminalization.
All right, either one, but why?
Because there's a difference. And you know what? Somebody who's young, who happens to go out and whoever, they're at a party, and they're, yeah, you're right, you're right.
Talking about because you made a jab at Trudeau being of the younger generation. I'm sorry, Larry, but
a
lot of people that I know that have been smoking pot, they're all those baby boomers.
Yes,
so,
you're right,
so
you're right.
do not say it's young people, you know,
No,
it's all these young people
you're absolutely
smoking
right.
pot.
It's, you know what, and it crosses all ages.
You know,
a lot
regardless,
of people,
Ron, it is illegal in this day and age
illegal
in
now,
Canada.
and decriminalize
and I can
it.
see a portion of decriminalization, just as you and Alex have noted, it frees up the system. But there is no way that we should be
why would you want to have a
offering any
record
more
for having
else.
a joint in your pocket?
Well, first off, it's illegal. So yes, you know when you put it in your pocket that you're going to have that record.
How do you justify, though, Tara? How do you justify
Because
a beer
it's on
versus...
the books. I just don't understand how you can. I don't understand how you cannot justify the difference between the two. One's been, you know,
but alcohol was illegal at one time.
For a very short time. Marijuana has never been legal. So why are we going to bring it up now?
All right. Well,
herb.
I think we've probably said as much as can be said about that.
sprinkle it on
And
your
just for the
pasta.
record, I wasn't jabbing at Trudeau for being young. I was admiring him for being young, but that's another story. Alex, this is for you, and it has to do with the whole political landscape in terms of the ward boundaries. The federal government, of course, is in charge of that, and they have drawn up some ward boundaries based on population movements and shifts. And it's actually done by an independent group. It's not done by politicians, unlike the United States, where they really gerrymander, which means that they align themselves to how they best think they're going to win their parties. And we saw some examples of that. In Canada, it's done by an independent group, but then it goes through a consultation process. Usually, there's one consultation with community as well. There's a second consultation in this area on the maps that have been redrawn. Some people are saying that the new maps are favoring the Conservatives. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that I guess the maps that came out in June were very to have that great big large riding going from Flamborough all the way to Winona. I don't actually believe that that did the community justice. And while it did certainly favor Liberals and NDP in the former new riding, so the June maps, I actually wasn't in support of that. Looking at the new ridings as they stand right now, I still think that the NDP has, gains a chance or is competitive here. Looking at the new riding for Old Stony Creek, East Mountain, there's certainly huge pockets of New Democrat voters there. And I think that the vote will come down to New Democrat versus Conservative, and it will be a tight race. I think that what will be interesting is if the province will adopt these ridings,
Well,
I think they will.
and where then, does Andrea Horvath continue to run in Hamilton Centre? That would now include Dundas, or does she move to Stony or Hamilton East, which is her traditional area? What happens to Paul Miller? Does he get bumped over to the new riding, or there's so many questions then?
Well, this happened before.
No, hang on a sec. It's Tara's turn, Ron.
Yeah, okay.
And Tara, Alex makes a good point in that it does impact on the provincial ridings as well because they mirror each other.
Oh, no, absolutely.
What's your take on this?
Absolutely, it will. For the riding that will be most affected, I think, in the Hamilton area will be the NDP because truly they do hold most of the seats, both provincially and federally, in the area. And really, there will be jockeying back and forth. You know, you remember the days of Tony Valeri versus Sheila Copps battling over, you know, Hamilton East and Stony Creek. So that will be interesting to see, and we could see some bruises there. I don't like the idea of Dundas being taken away from the Flamborough-Ancaster area, because traditionally it belongs there, and they share many of the same values and income per household, children per household. So I would like to see Dundas continue into that group. I don't know why we're into our second round of consultations. Normally these just go through one consultation. Not really. There weren't that many people at the meetings. No, we were actually fine with the way that they had drawn it up the first time, and we just let it be. And so I just don't know. It was a few voices that they listened to, and now we've come up with these new boundaries.
Ron, the Liberals, according to Alex anyway, seem to be being squeezed out.
I don't think so at all.
Go ahead.
I don't think so at all. I think that, you know, splitting the mountain into a mountain east, mountain west, you have different areas. You're going to have 5 ridings in this whole area. And getting back to one issue about they should mirror the political,
and they usually
both federal
do.
And provincial.
Well, they don't up north.
Well,
There's one extra
they should all be the
provincial
same.
riding up north.
I think it's confusing for a lot of voters not knowing where to vote all the time. But I think this way, when you have Ancaster, Flamborough, and Glanbrook, that's huge also. One of the proposed ridings. But splitting up Hamilton West and going to Dundas, I think that makes sense, and it was
well,
like
that's
that.
what it was before, a long time ago. Before.
So I think for the Liberals,
not all the way into Dundas.
I think for the Liberals, this is a good thing for the Liberals, and I think it would hurt the NDP more. Out of the 5 changes,
personally,
it would probably
I think
hurt the
under the old
NDP.
maps or the June maps, Liberals stood to gain the most. I don't really see you standing to gain with these new maps.
I do.
Well, there you go. Maybe we just heard the answer to why they're doing it a second time. Anyway, we'll see what happens. And the good thing is, as I say this in all sincerity, it's not a political process. It really isn't. It's populations and independent groups.
And those things,
together,
look at Hamilton. Municipally, I think some of the ridings are way out of whack. Here, the wards that we have are way out of whack, and I think those should be looked at too.
Because
of population movement, as you mentioned, there's a huge growth on the South Mountain, and you have the lower city, Ward 2 that I represented, is very, very small.
Yeah. In fact,
population
as far as the ward boundaries, remember there was a big community outcry that council decided not to look at it, and now they are. And I think not for this next election, but for the following election, there will be some changes. Anyway, we'll see what happens there. This one is for you, and it's Tara, and it has to do with the ethnic monitoring, not the ethnic monitoring. The which?
The federal budget.
Oh, okay. Yes, it has to do with the federal budget, Tara. Thank you. And that is the economic statement that Minister Flaherty brought down. He pointed out that we've got a $7 billion deficit more than we had, more than was anticipated. So he's elongated the timelines for balancing. Some people are saying that this is really evidence of bad fiscal management on the part of a party that has boasted good fiscal management. What say you?
Well, you have to understand that we live in a global economy. We are doing extremely well compared to Europe, compared to the fiscal cliff that's, being imposed on the United States in a few months. Unfortunately, we have to hold our ground, and we have to be very attuned and understanding of what the rest of the world is going to throw at us economically. So I think that Minister Flaherty is being very astute, very conservative in extending this deficit for a year longer, because he understands that even though we promised tax cuts and we promised all these things, sometimes you just can't have it all when you want it, because things change. Things change. Oh, come on. You of all people should be happy that we're not cutting taxes, Alex.
Well, Tara, I think that you're looking at $5 billion off projection, and this is just from March.
I thought it was 7.
It's 5 to 7 is what I was reading, but
I'll take 5.
at least that's what was in the Globe and Mail. So, but I think that I think we have to look at the fact here that nothing in this budget is there for helping the 1.4 million Canadians who are currently out of work, helping them get into a job. There's really nothing in this budget in terms of growing this economy. There's nothing in here to, I guess, you're not seeing any of that, I guess, fiscal responsibility.
Spending our way out of it.
Well, I do have to say, because Tara did bring up Europe, and over in Europe, has the austerity measures been working? No, they keep cutting and they keep going deeper and deeper into debt. You know,
they will eventually
just
work.
Yesterday, of course, it was all over the papers that they're entering into another second recession, a double dip,
And that's why we have to be careful in our own economy.
Directly from your cutbacks, directly from your austerity measures. You can't keep cutting jobs and expecting more revenue to come into place. This is the whole issue here, where Flaherty's announcing
think that's what we're doing.
a $5 billion,
I don't think that's what
$5
we're
to
doing.
$7 billion shortfall in government revenue.
Very smart in the way that we're putting this together.
Well, let's hear from Ron.
You know what? I think that the government failed in one area, and that is on their projections. I mean, it's not at the moment. They do all this work, this financial work, for the future. What is it going to be like in 5 years? They knew that a few years ago that the world was going through this huge economic turmoil. It's not something new. And a lot of the election promises were broken. I mean, you're allowing people to deduct off their taxes by going to the gym, their gym memberships and things like that. I mean, that's kind of silly, I think.
It's kind of silly to
but
encourage
I mean, you
people
can't,
to be healthy, Ron, so
yeah,
that we
you
don't
could
spend
encourage
so
them to be
much
healthy,
on our
but
healthcare system.
Do the taxpayers have to pay for that? Really?
The taxpayers is going to have to pay for it one way or another.
I just find that you make promises, and everyone, especially the TSFA was another. They were going to allow you to double the TSFA. They were going to allow you all these other, and this was all during the election. And these things got you elected, and now these are broken promises.
Oh, come on, Ron. Again, you're both complaining, but at the same time, if we had gone through with these cuts, you would have been complaining that, geez, we're not in the financial position to do it. So it's a catch-22.
That's not so much it, but the fact that we're $5 to $7 billion behind, and there is no action being taken on the economy. Harper's response is, just status quo.
Steady as she goes.
Well, steady as she goes.
And guess what? We're still doing a hell of a lot better than the rest of the world.
It's not steady if we're $5 to $7 billion shorter.
We are
we're
in way better shape
than the U.S.
Absolutely.
But I mean, look who our biggest trading partner is.
I'm so thankful that the Conservatives are in power right now, because I cannot imagine what you two would have done.
We are at the lightning round position, where each of you will get a chance to talk about one issue, once only, and I'm going to cut you off in about 30 seconds. You're very good at doing this. You've learned by now. Ron, we're back into a whole series of disruptions again. Teachers have taken strike votes, and in Halton they've started with perhaps some action against report cards, and some people say that students are going to be hurt and they're going to be put at risk. Oh, my gosh, it's deja vu all over again. What's your position on this?
Well, first and foremost, the safety of the students comes first, beyond any doubt. And I believe that the teachers will not endanger their students in any way. I understand their frustration in not settling this, but I'm frustrated too that they can't get to the table. And this is the public teachers. They can't sit at the table and iron out their differences, but they walk away. They got until the end of December 31st, to clear this up.
Time, Ron. Tara.
Well, I think that we've seen what this job action has done in the Halton region already. In the past few days, we've heard stories of principals having to look after hundreds of students on their own. Teachers not willing to work past certain hours or provide their time to students. And my question is, why, for the past few months, have I been seeing all these ads that the teachers have been generating about, we're putting the students first, we're not going to affect the students at all. It's affecting the students.
Alex.
Well, here in Hamilton, I can say that HWDSB does have a plan in place regarding student safety. Should, job action take place. And I think that what's important here is that there has been conversation. Certainly OSSTF has been back at the table provincially. And if you look at provincially, there's even revisiting of those sick days. And certainly their proposals are not that far apart. And I'm still hopeful that they will come to a deal. And I think that they can.
All right. So we'll stop there. And Alex, actually, this one's for you. Different topic. It has to do with doctors. Remember when McGuinty prorogued and he said we're going to try to get deals with the public sector, and people said, no, you're not, you're just running away. Well, you know what? They have a deal with the doctors that nobody thought was going to be possible, and some people are saying that this deal sets a template for sustainability in healthcare going forward. Surely you want to give Mr. McGuinty some credit.
Actually, I do. I'm happy that they were able to reach a deal. That said, at least they were at the negotiating table and they were willing to negotiate. Whereas with education, Minister Broughton was take it or leave it attitude, and that doesn't work. It's not respectful. I think that with the doctors, I would still like to see a lot more community-based services, because that's where savings are going to be made, and there is still a lot more overspending than was originally planned.
Tara, do you think that McGuinty deserves credit here, or do you think that they caved?
I think that they totally caved. They needed a win. They're certainly not getting it with the teachers, so they gave in to the doctors, and unfortunately we can't even question the deal because we're being prorogued.
You see, the NDP is playing nice and the Conservatives are not. Ron, what do you think?
You know what? I'm very, very pleased that they came to an agreement. They ironed out their differences and they compromised, give and take.
Yeah, you coughed up money.
But we didn't really cough up money. We arranged to have certain services cut a little bit that we really don't need. I mean, when you go, if you're a perfectly healthy person, and one of the issues was your yearly medical. If you're a perfectly healthy individual, you're not on any medication, well, why do you have to be there for 4-hour medical?
You're over 11 million.
Okay. All right. Listen, this one's for you, Alex. And this one is a very touchy topic because it deals with a woman who walked into a male barber shop and went to the barber and asked for a haircut, and the barber happened to be of Muslim faith. And according to his faith, he said that I cannot touch a woman and therefore refused. She's gone directly to the Human Rights Board and launched a complaint. Who's right? Who's wrong?
Geesh, I don't even want to rule on this. I think that, I guess if you look at it from a principled point of view, what takes priority, religious rights versus gender equity? Because that's, really what is being contended here. Personally, I guess it's too bad that she couldn't get the haircut, and it's too bad that he has his barbershop right in the middle of a high-speed terminal.
Right in the fence. What do you say, Tara? Quickly.
This is everything that I hate about the Rights Commission. Everything. It's just someone nitpicking and wasting our taxpayers' money, whereas that person could have just gone to another barbershop to get an ugly haircut.
Or another barber in the same shop. Ron, what do you think?
I agree with that. Or another barber in the same shop.
No, they were all Muslim.
Oh, they were all Muslim. And I don't know whether
Go to the next barber.
And I think she maybe set this up for her 15 minutes of fame, but I think it's silly. I think, you know what, if she wanted to go to a barber, find a barber that she likes. So I guess this was obviously her first time there. But I mean, to take this all the way up to the commission is just
for shame.
Insane.
All right. Well,
and I have to respect the barber himself. This is what he firmly believes in. And
all right, and we do have the commission, and we'll see how it rules. But listen, it's my turn, and we're going to go very fast because we are running out of time. And mine has to do with politicians who don't always tell the consistent story throughout. We saw that in the American election where Mr. Romney said one thing during the primaries and then something else during the election. We saw it provincially here where the Liberals said one thing about power plants and then did something else just before the election. And we're now seeing it with Mr. Mulcair, who's being accused of saying some things in Quebec to the Quebecers and something to the rest of the Canadians, and it has to do with pandering, some people think, to the Quebec vote. So here's the question. Is there virtue in consistency, or are we to expect that people will tailor their message depending on their audience. Ron?
No, I think it should be the same message right across the country. I think Mr. Mulcair is going to be in some difficulty in the next federal election when the issue of sovereignty comes up, and all these NDP members are going to have to take a stand one way or the other. Are they for Canada or are they for Quebec?
I think that you have to speak to your crowd. The same message isn't going to resonate all across Canada, especially not in Quebec. Unfortunately, we do have a very divisive Francophone versus Anglophone contingent in Canada. I still don't agree with Mulcair's message, but I get why he did it.
And Alex?
Mulcair did not flip-flop, and what's in question here is that he told a Quebec crowd that we would start a provincial-level NDP party. Upon reevaluation, we realized that we really weren't in a position to do that, and so when he spoke to a Toronto crowd, I believe it was 3 weeks later, he reversed that, and I see no problem with it. In regards to sovereignty, I think that Mulcair is bang on. It's a complex issue, and he understands and respects that, and I think that he is right in putting it back onto Quebecers to decide.
All right, we'll see how this plays out during an election, because it'll come at some point. Panel, thank you very much. We are done for the Opinionators today. So let me thank the audience for watching, and let me thank the panel for their expert opinions. And we're going to see you a week today when we again share our expert opinions with you. Thanks for watching.
Tara Cronali's Hair by Ludi Mamoda Hair and Aesthetic Studio, 169 James Street North in downtown Hamilton.